Hi everyone, welcome to GBE Reviews. I'm your host Joe, and today I'm going to be talking about the anime Shikabane Hime, or Corpse Princess in English. To give you a little bit of background, Shikabane Hime is a 26-episode, 2-season anime produced by Gainax between 2008 and 2009. It is an adaptation of a 23-volume manga sharing the same name. A little bit of extra background. First, the manga ran from 2005 to 2014. Therefore, the majority of the manga's content was not released until after the anime completed its 2-season run. I have not read the source material, but I gather that it covers a lot of additional material by a quick look at the wiki and seeing there was a ton of characters I was completely unfamiliar with. Second, the 2 seasons are fairly different. This is one of those anime that starts off one way and ends a completely different way. So when you watch the first 2 to say 5 episodes, there's a lot of comedy intertwined. Everything is pretty lighthearted. You're not getting all of the serious nature of the anime. From the later half of the anime's first season down through the second season, it gets a whole lot darker. The story gets a lot more gritty. So at that point, you're going to definitely see a major transition in themes. Alright, now that we have some background, let's talk about the story. Shikabane Hime follows the exploits of Ori, a high school boy who has recently moved out of his home at the orphanage/temple. His adopted older brother Keisei is a contracted monk in the Kogan sect of Buddhism, which is in charge of fighting with Shikabane Hime to kill Shikabane. In the second season, Ori joins the ranks of contracted monks and also fights the Shikabane. I think the overall flow of the story works well. The story begins with Ori learning about his brother's hidden life and about the Shikabane and Shikabane Hime. The first half of Season 1 is your basic Monster of the Week style where Keisei and Makina fight different Shikabane while Ori manages to find his way into each of the battles until he learns the truth about Keisei and his past. From there, the story develops into a struggle pitting the contracted monks against the Shikabane group, the Seven Stars. This is a major plot driver through the end of Season 1 and into the end of the anime. There are some major events that happen during the first and second seasons that would spoil if you're unfamiliar, so I won't discuss any of those. One thing I find interesting about Shikabane Hime is all the moral ground it covers. This anime is far more complex than just a raw good versus evil. I'd like to talk about some of the messages and the kinds of interesting reflection type questions the anime asks the viewer to contemplate. Number 1. What are Shikabane Hime, and what can be the relationship between the living and the dead? There's an overall feeling that the Shikabane Hime are quote-unquote defiled, and are basically tools to be used by their monks. The anime covers many different kinds of relationships between the Shikabane Hime and their contracted monks, such as unrequited love, mutual love, deep friendship, and even disdain. Given the culture of the Kogan sect, managing each of these relationships plays out in quite an interesting and major subplot of the story. Number 2. What is the nature of a person? Is it okay to follow your true nature outside of the bounds of society, even if your nature is to do evil and barbaric things? This one is prevalent in several episodes, the most noteworthy when Takamasa is forced to confront the Shikabane of his best friend growing up. His regret over dying was so strong that he took revenge on those who killed him, and then kept on killing. During their confrontation, the Shikabane debates with Takamasa about who is just. Is it okay for them to kill? Was he justified in taking his revenge on those who killed him? This episode is quite good and one of my favorites. Number 3. What is true morality? If a decree comes from a church or temple, does it make it just? Is it okay to lie to Shikabane Hime just because they are dead and you need their help? This is one of the more important of the moral questions introduced in the series. Shikabane Hime are considered defiled, and are only allowed to stay alive because of their contracted monks. Therefore, is it okay to use them in any way possible? Is it okay to lie to them about their true nature and their fates if you're using them to do a good deed? And number 4, what does it mean to be alive? This one comes into play near the end of the series. Is there another option for Shikabane Hime besides fighting? Is it a peaceful and beautiful life worth living? Also, is it possible to feel more alive and have a more fulfilling existence even after you've died? That seems to be the theme I've seen in several of the Shikabane, where they think about their past and then decide that they've actually lived a more fulfilling life after they've actually died. Overall, the story is very dark in nature. It does have some comedy mixed in to brighten the mood, though the instances of comedy become few and far between by the second season. One thing I need to bring up is just how unsatisfying the series ending felt to me. I believe there was an opportunity to cut a bit from the final episode and give the series a better ending. As it stands, I was quite unhappy with the ending. To add insult to injury, the series released a one-episode OVA, which covered the background story of a monk and his Shikabane Hime, instead of following through with the ending. What makes it even worse is the fact that this monk was a huge douche, and he was the least interesting of all the contracted monks. I really didn't care about him, so the fact that they went through a lot of backstory really frustrated me, especially considering how upset I was with how the ending went out. Though the ending may have been bad, the soundtrack of this anime is fantastic. This is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. There are so many good tracks it would be difficult to cover them all. Before I play some of my favorites, I'd like to point out how well this anime uses the OST. There is an episode where the Shikabane they fight is a singer. Her song is on the OST and she sings a bit of it acoustically in the anime. One of the neat things is the English subbed version rewrote the song with a new set of English lyrics. I'm not sure how often that happens, but it must be pretty rare outside of the really major English releases. Here is the scene in the anime where she sings a bit from the song, first in Japanese and then in English.
どうします他に何を作るまたか Please give your life to me when you are gone I will care for it hold it close to my heart all for you Another one
Here are a few of the songs I really liked from the OST. Keep in mind there are plenty of good ones and I definitely suggest everyone give this a listen. The art in this anime is a bit rough. I actually recommended this one to a friend about a year ago, and he didn't want to watch it because of the art style. It isn't bad per se, but it's a bit dark, as in both the tone and the hue, and it looks definitely dated. The fight scenes are done fairly well, though not as good as some other anime I've seen. As far as the characters, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, as the characters and their development is one of the best parts of this anime. The one thing I will say is that the character relationships are very deep, and the connection between Shikabane Hime and Contracted Monk is a major emotional driver. Alright, so let's review the most important question. Should you watch this anime? Let's review some of the good and bad elements of Shikabane Hime, and who should watch it. The kind of people who would like Shikabane Hime, aka the good. Are you looking for a dark anime that includes solid fighting, dark themes, and thought-provoking philosophy? Do you enjoy characters with deep bonds whose relationships evolve and develop over time? Do you enjoy a universe with unique rules that you learn about over time? Now the kind of people who would dislike Shikabane Hime, aka the bad. Do you like really up-to-date graphics that are solid and crisp? Do you dislike dark-themed anime and generally like something light and fun? Do you dislike sad anime, where characters may or may not die, or you find out things about the universe that will definitely make you sad? Do you hate stories with bad endings enough not to watch them? In summary, Shikabane Hime is a solid, dark anime that blends together fighting, supernatural elements, and thought-provoking questions on morality. There are solid action sequences and plenty of sad moments. If this sounds like your kind of thing, I definitely suggest watching it. Even if it isn't, I strongly suggest checking out the OST. There are tons of interesting pieces, and it's one of my favorites of all time. Well, that's pretty much it. Hopefully you found this review helpful, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of GBE Reviews. Again, I'm your host Joe, saying to you, Jeanne.
Oh, please don't let me die, waiting for you.